My family sent me to an asylum to hide their dark secret. Just by looking at us, you'd think my family was just your run-of-the-mill suburban neighbors. My mom drives a minivan, my dad's a kindergarten teacher, my grandma spent her days knitting on our porch. But if you knew them like I did, you'd move far, far away. They're evil. Evil, devious, and dangerous. Hi, I'm Emma, and this is the story of why my family sent me to an asylum just to make sure I wouldn't spill their secrets. At first, I thought they were just really addicted to online shopping. When they were starting, maybe 1, maybe 2 packages would arrive at our doorstep. Granny would tip the mailman, and then she'd come to me and ask for my help to send some company the payment. "Aren't you supposed to pay for these packages before they get shipped?" I asked Granny when she asked me the first time. No. They let people order from them and the money comes after. Very up-and-coming place. So I guess they've got their own gimmicks and such," she said. "Now quit dilly-dallying and wire the money to that account." As time passed, the mailman stopped coming to our house, but the packages kept coming. More and more packages. And then I'd see my mom unloading boxes upon boxes of the same stuff after she'd been on weekend trips with her girlfriends. One day, I found out what they were really up to when I decided to open one of the boxes when nobody was looking. My family were scammers. They would prey upon old pensioners who didn't know better and had no ability to do anything online or on their phones. The packages they sent over were filled with thousands of dollars hidden inside whatever the poor souls found in the house to wrap the money in. My dad would call up these people, tell them someone from their family had been kidnapped, and then he'd give them instructions about how to package them and where to drop the money off. They'd have me transfer it to an offshore account, and then they'd do it all over again. They used my brother to scope out potential targets. He'd listen in on conversations and gossip with the older women to get information from them. Mom and Dad seemed to be always at work, so I never questioned why they needed me to do so much online banking for them. Granny couldn't even figure out the TV, so she had an excuse too. My brother would always have something he urgently needed to do when it was time to do transfers, so it really fell onto my hands and my bank account. Because, of course, my parents would never give me their account credentials, so when all this started, I thought nothing of using my own account. When I found everything out, I almost kicked myself for how stupidly I'd incriminated myself. I should have suspected more. What was crazier was that Granny had been the mastermind of this the whole time. Of course, I was against the entire operation, and when they couldn't convince me to keep my silence, they made sure nobody would ever believe me. One morning, I woke up outside on our front lawn. My mother was shrieking, and our house was a pile of embers. Just in time, the police came. "It's our daughter," she cried. "We found out she was scamming old ladies, and she set the house on fire when we said we'd tell the authorities. She's disturbed. She's always been disturbed. I thought if we just ignored it, it wouldn't get worse." She sobbed a few more seconds to really sell it. My grandma stepped up. She looked at the policewoman with pained, pleading eyes. Please get help for our little Emma. She's such a sweet girl. It's just these little episodes." The lighter they'd slipped into my pajamas pocket as I was sleeping didn't help matters. Neither did the empty gas container they'd put by my feet. It didn't take long for the police to confirm that I was indeed the one who'd been sending ridiculous amounts of money to an offshore bank account, an account that had already been emptied. And so, on grounds of my insanity, they sent me to an asylum, and they were sure no one would believe not one word of what I uttered. "Hands," the nurse said. When I presented him my palm, he dumped a couple of pills onto it, handed me a plastic cup of water, and looked at me as if he'd had better use for his time. No way am I taking those, I thought. I knew they gave sedatives and other sketchy drugs to people in these types of places so they wouldn't cause trouble, and I wasn't about to drive myself insane by messing with pills like these. So I nodded, popped the pills, pretended to sip on water, and swallowed air. I tucked the pills under my tongue, stuck it out to show him my mouth was empty, and smiled like an obedient girl. He turned and left, slamming the door behind him. I noticed one of the nurses who took me in clearly liked me, so I befriended her. I continued to pretend to take my pills day in and day out. I made sure to act lethargic when they needed me to be, and I acted all happy and energetic when they wanted me to be. As the days turned into weeks, my friendship with Nurse Gail blossomed. When she spoke to me, I made sure to always look like everything she said fascinated me. When she made me laugh, I would touch her arm. I dressed up nicely whenever I knew she was working. And when she would compliment me on how I looked, I would pretend to be embarrassed. And then I'd look up at her face with my lips pressed tightly and ever so slightly smile. Whenever she saw me pulling that face, she'd blush and suddenly need to be excused. So when I had finished mapping out my escape route a month later, I knew I had her in the palm of my hand. "Nurse Gail," I said, batting my eyelashes as I appeared from one of the activity rooms one day, intercepting her on the way to a 15-minute break. I knew her schedule down to the second by then. "Oh, geez, it's just you," she said after she jumped in surprise. "You nearly gave me a heart attack. What's up? Did you like those drag queen volunteers last night? They were awesome, weren't they?" "Very," I said. "Anyway, you got time?" I made sure she noticed the lipstick I had on. "Time for—" She noticed, and when I smiled, she blushed again. I was making paper airplanes earlier, and somehow I got one stuck above the cupboards, and I really liked that one. I batted my eyelashes again. She knew I was just making up an excuse. I wasn't fooling anyone with that sad lie, but she said yes anyway. As soon as she got through my room's door, I closed it behind us, and she fixed an admonishing look at me. "Bad girl," she said, and then she kissed me. I had to be very careful. One wrong move, and she'd know exactly what I was aiming for. Gail pulled me in to kiss me deeper. "Ow!" I exclaimed, clutching my stomach. When I jerked my body in pain and doubled over, I steadied myself on her waist, and once I had my hand there, I only had to distract her with my pretend pain a second more. I unclipped her access badge from her belt, and in a split second, I let it fall to the floor. I immediately stepped on it so she wouldn't see. I took a deep, long breath and straightened up. "Whew!" "What is it?" Gail asked, her face swimming with concern. "Are you okay?" I rubbed my stomach and said, "It's those new drugs they've got me on. Gives me cramps and shit." Gail's face showed her confusion. "That doesn't sound right. They're not supposed to have those side effects. All right, let me tell Dr. Chen about it. I'll see what I can do, yeah?" "You're an angel," I said as I smiled the sweetest smile I could manage. As soon as Gail had turned a corner, I slipped out of my room. I slinked through the corridors, attracting as little attention as I could. With Gail's access pass, I could get wherever I pleased. I dressed up in one of the custodian's overalls, which I found in the staff lockers. I knew Grace was about the right build as me. We even looked a bit similar, so I went to the room where they kept the trash and effortlessly walked out of the back door, pretending to be Grace, taking out the trash. I kissed Gail's ID and discarded it in one of the bushes. I ran down back alleys and crisscrossed through city blocks until I was sure I was safe. I knew I had to get them back, and I couldn't just call the police. I had to do it the insane way. So I watched them. From afar and without their notice, I made sure I was dressed differently each time, crouching under bushes or pretending to walk a random dog I found on the street. One time, I stalked my dad down an entire street by pretending to be homeless and collecting trash in a shopping cart from the grocery store he'd just left. Through all this, I stayed with my best friend. Dave was the only one who believed in me anymore. When I finally knew my family's most predictable movements and when they planned to go on a trip as a group, I put my plan into motion. I dressed up in a mangled hospital gown, borrowed my best friend's makeup kit, and with his insane makeup skills, he taught me how to look like a haunted corpse. From Dave's car, we dialed my mom's number. He told her, while posing as a doctor from the asylum, that I'd been found dead after my escape. I could see the massive grin on her face as she pretended to be distraught over the phone. She ran into the house, and I knew they were about to go on a trip to celebrate. I knew exactly where they were going, so I was ready to greet my dad at their favorite pit stop on the way to our lake house. I appeared to him first by the window of the gas station. He did a double take, but I was gone. When he got back into the car, he adjusted the rear-view mirror like he always did. In that split second, I appeared to him again in the mirror, and when he spun around to check, I was gone. "Did you see that?" he asked the rest of the family, who were busy playing a game of charades in the back seat. Dave and I drove a safe distance from them to the lake house, and that night, while they slept, Dave let loose the fog machine we rented. I started shrieking, "Why?" Dave rattled their bedroom windows, and I walked outside them, bathed in the moonlight and looking like the creepiest ghost any of them had ever seen. They shot out of their beds, and as their screams mingled with mine, they trembled in absolute fear. "Vengeance!" I roared as I kicked the doors open. And as if nature was on my side, thunder rumbled and lightning began to flash above us. My dad fainted into my mom's arms, and I was satisfied.